All right, everybody, welcome back. Today, we're going to be going in-depth into winners round one matchups. You know, I was doing champs prep, figure, why not just make a video out of it? Hopefully, everything we go through today is accurate. My kid was sick last night, so hopefully it's all good. But there is a chance that I have something wrong. I copy and pasted something that's not correct. So if I'm wrong, you can fix it for me. I appreciate you very much. So yeah, today we're going to be going over this matchup, New York versus Surge. Obviously, on one side, you have the Major 4 champions, and then Surge, who ended up picking up the 5th seed through a much better stage 3 and 4. I kind of went through my notes, our like CDL internal document, picked out things that I made sense, different trends. So we're going to start with the head-to-head. New York is up 3-1 on the year. Obviously, their most recent matchup was the Major 4 qualifier, where New York won 3-1. You can see the big thing here is sort of those map stats. I think the most surprising thing to me, why did I get so thick, is the S&D, which is 4-0 on the year for New York versus Surge. But this is the last matchup that they played in the Major 4 qualifiers. Going through the map lists and kind of what they've been playing a lot, there's a chance these are similar. Going through the vetoes, of course, things can get weird come champs time, just depending on what teams are prepping. Of course, like Vista could be back in, Rio could be back in. Both teams play it. I don't think it will be high-rise control. I think more than likely to be invasion, but you never know. S&Ds could get a little bit weird because both these teams have a pretty deep map pool. But yeah, that's kind of it on the year. Player stats headed into the matchup. You'll kind of see here, but pretty much all of Seattle overall are negative. On the other side, Hydra's got like a 1.15. Skies, though, dominates. He's got a 1.32 versus Surge. So Skies has been really good here versus Surge. So something to look out for. And again, the S&D 4-0, big surprise here. Booza really struggles 0.39 KD over 4 maps versus the Subliners. Opening dual win percentage is very low outside of Brezzy, but he's not really that active in a lot of their games. On the other side, it's kind of set by these two. And Hydra really set up the way for Search. They do it in this series as well. So that's just some overall things, just looking at head-to-head. Now we're going to deep dive into each team. And then at the end, I have like some bigger talking points going into the series, what I think will matter. But for now, we're just going to kind of go into recent trends. So for Surge, just looking at overall stage 4, 10-7 for our hardpoints. S&D 7-8, Control 5-5. Nothing that really stands out here. I think, you know, if you look at the hardpoint 4-1 on Vista, you take that away, and what, they're sitting at 50%. So I imagine a lot of teams are going to be vetoing their Vista. I could also see New York egoing it because they're on a 10-map win streak. Throughout stage 4, their sub-base has been their veto. So if you at the team page, Breaking Point, shout out Breaking Point as always. You take a look at Major 4 here. So sub-base has been their big veto. Now, the one surprising thing here with sub-base, they did pull it out at the Major. Now, I don't know if that's on purpose, but they did do a versus phase here. So this was actually their map pick. Now, again, sort of phase wasn't their strongest, but they played a lot of it throughout stage 4. I feel like the only reason you would pick it is you've been working on it. The problem, though, for Surge is if they want to play New York on sub-base, you're going to see here that that's kind of turned into their veto. So they've been vetoing this a lot more. It didn't used to be that. Throughout the year, they used to play a lot more of it. But Major 4, they only went 1-on-1, but compared to Major 3, 0-1. So they got away from it like Major 3 and 4. So I don't know if we're going to see a sub-base. Probably a veto from New York. But there is a chance you see that from Surge. Maybe not in this matchup, but maybe later on. Yeah, I expect probably these big 3. I think most teams are going to get rid of Vista versus them. They were 0-3 in map wins at Major 4, so not the best start in a series when you're always going down 0-1, especially because their S&D hasn't been great. These are just to look at their hardpoint stats throughout stage 4. This is kind of like the Seattle Surge way. There's nobody really popping off. They play very gritty. They play very quick. You'll see 0-4 and Hook have near 60 engagements per 10 minutes. So they all play at a very fast pace. They try to keep the games close, especially the top 4, and just kind of grind it out. So that's kind of look at their hardpoint. It's been a lot better, but still some work to do. Now looking at their search, honestly, I think maybe just because like of the first stage, but their search is kind of a big concern for me. 7-8 in stage 4, 6-7 in stage 3. I think if Seattle Surge want to go on a run here, they're going to have to do it throughout search. The one good thing, though, is they do have a deep map pool. They're willing to play all 5 maps. You'll see throughout stage 4, they pretty much played everything, which, yeah, I think is good, especially at this point. They're right around 50% or a little bit under it. They have wins on everything. They have losses on everything. Throughout stage 4, they pretty much veto what? these three, Karachi, High Rise, and Rio. They'll play as much 6-star as they want. Invasion, so you could see Invasion versus New York again in this matchup. Yeah, this surprised me a little bit. If you look at their Major 4, where they were 2-3 on the year, or in Search and Destroy, 2-3. Again, they play all 5 maps, but Hook was really bad. He had a .42 in Search and Destroy. And normally, like, you have a bad map or two in a major and your stats could get really skewed. But 5 maps, I feel like, is good enough where you can kind of get away from those ugly stats. So this is ugly. This is ugly. I think the other big thing for him is he's got a 30% opening win duel rate, which basically you're going to try to get your first bloods, right? He's an aggressive player. Not good at all. So really need Hook to step up here at Champs in Search and Destroy. Yeah, and you'll see it. In Major 3, he had a 66% win rate in those opening duels. So Hook really had a rough major. Again, if you look at both majors, they didn't have the best Search and Destroy. So something they really have to improve on. What's a good opening duel win rate? I think anything above 50. I think maybe if you look at the stats, it's probably some of the best are probably 60% or higher. But I think if you're around 50, you're at least getting some first bloods, or you're not, right? Like on offenses, you're just going to have to take some risks. So I would say around 50 is probably normal. 30% is really low. You also got to remember how much, like, many more opening duels he's taking compared to maybe other players. But I just see Hook is that way, right? They're going to play a lot of 6-star around Statue. Like, he's going to have to find opening duels through smokes. He had some big plays, but I was just surprised that they're Search and Destroy going into it. All right, control stats. This is kind of where Surge really turned their year around. Going through everything, I was really surprised by this. So you'll see right here, hasn't been great, 13-27, but they only got 3 of those, 2-9 in stage 1, 1-7 in stage 2, and then it gets better. 5-6 in stage 3, 5-5 in a major 4, so stage 4. So this has kind of been the one game mode that's kept them in a lot of these series, right, with their hardpoint improving. They play all 3 maps through stage. They played all 3 maps at the major. High Rise, if you look in depth, especially their offense has gotten a lot worse. From stage 3 to stage 4, they went from rank 1 to rank 11 with a 1-6 record on offense. So their offense hasn't been fantastic at all. And again, if you're playing New York, you have the chance to potentially play a High Rise, depending on how vetoes go. I think it's going to end up being Invasion, just looking at recent stats. And that's going to be important for them. Invasion defense is stayed strong. They're 14-3 on Invasion through stage 4. And their Karachi's been okay. So they've been 6-3 in attacking rounds on Karachi. I think that's pretty normal. But yeah, if you look at Major 4, they're, again, 50%. But I think they prefer to play as much Invasion as they can. And that's where New York's found a little bit more success. So you might see that there. Okay, so that's control stats. All right, that's all a Surge. Just kind of looking at their in-depth stuff, game mode by game mode. Now time for New York to go in depth a little bit on their side. They have a 10-map win streak at Major 4 in hardpoint specifically. After their day 1 loss to FaZe, they then went on to win everything. So they got 3-0'd by FaZe in match 1. They lost to 40.6-star, and then they kind of went crazy, some would say. As you can see, they had 3 players in top 8 KD at Major 4. Maybe the biggest surprise here is going to be Kismet at number 7 with 1.17. Yeah, those 3 were frying. Skies doesn't have the prettiest stats, but I think one thing to note is sort of the hill time per 10 minutes has got a lot better objective-wise. Oh, yeah. No, just the Tylenol. It would be like 6:30. Yeah. All right, looking at their turnarounds from stage 3 to stage 4. So on Vista and Rio, they were 3-7 between these 2 maps, but then 11-2 through stage 4. So I mean, these are the 2 maps where their hardpoints just got a lot better. Plus, at the major, they didn't lose it. So they were kind of a team that went away from Rio. If you look at Major 3, they only played it 5 times. Major 2, they were 3-1, but then they started losing it. And then, yeah, throughout the stage of Major 4, that and Vista, they went up to 11-2. Obviously, you have that swing. And then Kismet really found his stride. So a .84 all at stage 3 in hardpoint, 1.08 in stage 4. I think that's probably one of the big question marks here is if he's going to keep this up. And, like, what does this look like if he's somewhere in the middle? Like, I don't know, a .95. I don't think that's the worst thing. I don't know if they're going to win every single hardpoint at Champs. But, yeah, I mean, you can just tell they're playing less sub-ace, less 6-star, pretty much just playing with speed behind their sub-duo. And then, again, just feels like Skies and Sib have really figured out their roles. S&D stats, maybe, like, one concern here, or one of the concerns, I guess, is that this fell off a bit. Going into stage 4, finish at 10-10 throughout stage 4, where like they were the #1 team. So one big thing with their S&D, their high rise has fallen off. They were 1-4 throughout stage 4, 1-2 at the major. A big glaring sign is their defense, 3-9 in defending rounds at the major. And then another thing here is, which kind of surprised me again, was Hydra was a .86. Wasn't the best search event out of Hydra. They still won a search in the final. I think they still have a good enough search where this doesn't matter, especially if their hard point is going to be at this level. But if you look at all of stage 4, Hydra had a 60% in that opening duel rate, so maybe just the major didn't have the best search and destroy. And then, like I said, yeah, they may have slipped, but they still won 1 versus Karachi, or versus FaZe on Karachi, 6-2 in that final. Skies was actually a beast too. He is a 1.22. He leads the way for them in search and destroy. Didn't have the best respawn event, didn't need to, but he was a monster for them in search. So yeah, I'll see if he can keep that up at the major or at champs. He has invested well into his game. All right, control stats. So throughout Major 4, their control was 8-7. But you'll see here, they were actually super clutch at the major. They were 4-1 in round 5s. They were 3-1 in invasion on the tournament. The only loss was the FaZe on day 1. We kind of looked at that. They were 0-2 online during stage 4. So it seemed like they were kind of getting away from this a little bit. They lost it a couple of times. They started trying to play a little Karachi. The Karachi's not bad, but they were, again, just trying to force high rise. People not playing them on high rise too often. But that's why you'll see Karachi's 3-1 throughout stage 4. Again, they're willing to play all 3 maps, but I think what's big for them is their invasion here has gotten much better than what we kind of saw. It was their go-to for a long time because everybody was vetoing high rise, right? They have the most maps on that, 21. They had a bit of a slump, but at their major, they really turned it around, which allowed them to win pretty much. So those are just looking at key stats in each game mode for each team that I'm looking at. Key takeaways for me. Kind of talked about the Hook thing. So we'll see if he will get better there in search and destroy. And I just think overall, if Surge wants to cause upsets, their S&D has to get better at this major. Again, on the year, their search is 28 and 23. But if you look at Major 3 and Major 4, it's 13 and 15. And you're just not going to cause upsets that way. And obviously with New York's search maybe trending downward, there's an opening there. We talked about Abuza. He really struggles in this matchup. He didn't have like the best Major 4 either. He was much better in Major 3. But we'll see if that turns around. Hardpoint wise, again, I think like if you look at Vista, Karachi, and even Rio, these are kind of the big 3 that New York won at the major. It's gonna be tough for Surge to play it. I would imagine Veto wise. Well, we'll get into that, but the hardpoint maps that Surge want to play, New York have dominated recently. I think if Surge want to get to a game 5, they're probably going to have to win this control. Both teams have really strong invasions going into this. Depends who has the veto. What New York could do if they pick Team B, they could veto. They could do this a couple of ways. They could veto invasion and then try to force, I guess, a Karachi. But I feel like the top teams avoid Karachi versus, I don't know, teams someone like Surge, just because there's those crazy offensive round wins. So I could see them just vetoing that and then either playing high rise or invasion. I would guess it would be invasion. And then I think a big question mark is just, can New York continue to play at this level once again? And what happens if they start losing some hard points? I don't think they're going to go undefeated again. There's a chance, but that would be insane. It's just, yeah, is everywhere else good enough against the top teams? So I guess map vetoes now, what I would think. Oh, let's see here. If you were Surge, you'd probably get rid of Rio. You'd probably veto Rio. Now, this is what I don't know. New York have a choice here. They could veto either Vista or Subbase. I think they're going to end up vetoing Subbase. And then probably Surge would probably pick Vista. New York would pick Karachi. Karachi was 4-2 throughout the major, or at stage 4. That makes the most sense to me. I mean, I guess Surge could also go 6-star here and avoid Vista, but Vista has been their best map. So I would say 6-star or Vista. And then I think New York picked Karachi here. That's for hard points. What S&D wise? Let's see. I don't play a lot of Karachi. New York don't either. Let me look at that last match. They played Invasion last time, right? Played Invasion and 6-star. New York won that. Have Surge vetoed this at all? Invasion? I haven't at all. I haven't vetoed this at all. So there's this choice. Let's say Surge go. All right, New York are just going to veto Rio, right? New York are going to veto Rio. Surge, let's say Surge veto Karachi. New York would probably pick Invasion. Surge would pick, well, they could pick High Rise. High Rise is 1-4 though here for, what does Surge play? Do they pick High Rise at all? 1-3. Could be the one left out. High Rise might be the one map where you could see something. 6-star. Surge for New York play 6-star, right? Yeah. I'm gonna go with 6-star. Wouldn't be surprised if we get a high rise, but that's what I'm gonna guess. There is also the chance that Surge veto an invasion here. If they do that, this would be Karachi, right? And you still have the choice. So it depends on what Surge vetoes, but New York's just gonna stick with their Rio veto. So there's a couple of ways this one could go, but this is probably my best guess. Again, Champs is a little different. You have a couple of weeks, you know your matchup. You could hard focus on specific maps, so it wouldn't surprise me if like their coaching staff, they, Surge then picks high rise and they veto invasion. But we'll see what happens there. Control wise, I guess it depends who picks Team E or Team B. My pick is, I would assume invasion. Both teams have been pretty darn good there. And I think just with Surge is 0-4 in control. Well, that was Major 3. Yeah, so it got better here. I mean, they could go Karachi. I just feel like a lot of teams don't want to play that versus teams they feel like they can beat. So I'm going to imagine they go, like Karachi veto into invasion map pick, especially at Champs. They're probably going to take the safer one. So yeah, that's what I'm thinking map vetoes are. That's a look at sort of New York in Surge, winners round 1. That's the first match at Champs. Hopefully you guys enjoyed a video like this, trying to look at stats. Again, I was just kind of prepping, kind of looking at things that stood out to me. I mean, you may like the way or the stats I picked. You may not. That's okay. But hopefully you enjoy some in-depth videos like that. I appreciate it. And yeah, we'll continue to do the other matchups. So thanks for watching the video.